Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a battle that you've probably never heard of, but one that dramatically shaped the future of East Asia. We're talking about the Battle of Subia in 681 AD, a pivotal clash between the powerful Tams dynasty of China and the resilient Tibetan Empire. This wasn't just a skirmish, it was a defining moment in a long and complex rivalry that would redraw the map of the region for centuries. So, grab your snacks, get comfortable, and let's journey back to the 7th century. To really get what's at stake, we need to understand the players. First, the Tams dynasty. This was China's golden age. Think unparalleled cultural achievements, economic prosperity, and military might. The Tams emperors, like Taizong and Gaozong, saw themselves as the rightful rulers of all under heaven. Their armies were professional, well-equipped, and it expanded the empire's borders in every direction. They controlled the vital Silk Road trade routes, projecting their power deep into Central Asia. By the 670s, the Tang dynasty was, without a doubt, the superpower of the era. But a new challenger was rising from the world's highest plateau. The Tibetan Empire, unified under the legendary King Songtsen Gampo just a few decades earlier, was expanding at a breathtaking pace. These weren't just scattered tribes anymore. This was a centralized, militaristic state with a fierce warrior culture honed by the harsh environment of the Tibetan plateau. They were brilliant horsemen and tough-as-nails fighters. Under the ambitious leadership of the Gar clan, particularly the regent Gar Tongtsen, and his sons Tibet began to push north and west, directly challenging Tams' control over strategic territories. The main point of contention was the Tarim Basin, a vast desert region dotted with oasis city-states. Today, it's part of Xinjiang. Why was it so important? Simple. The Silk Road. Whoever controlled these oases controlled the flow of goods, wealth, and ideas between the East and the West. For the Tang, it was a source of immense profit and prestige. For the Tibetans, it was the key to their imperial ambitions and economic growth. Starting in the 660s, the Tibetans launched a series of stunningly successful campaigns, capturing key cities like Kashgar and Khotan, and effectively hijacking a huge chunk of the Silk Road from the Tams. This was a massive blow to the Tang's court. Emperor Gaozong and his powerful wife, the future Empress Wuzishang, couldn't let this stand. Losing the western regions, as they called them, was not just an economic loss. It was a humiliating slap in the face. So they decided to strike back with overwhelming force. In 678, they assembled a colossal army, reportedly numbering over 180,000 soldiers, under the command of the veteran general Zhu Rengui. Their goal, to crush the Tibetan forces in the Qinghai Lake region and reclaim the Tarim Basin. But things went disastrously wrong. At the Battle of Dafei River, the Tibetans, led by the brilliant general Ga Trinring, used their knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. They lured the massive Tams army deep into treacherous territory, cut off their supply lines, and launched a surprise attack. The result was a catastrophic defeat for the Tams. It was one of the biggest military disasters in the dynasty's history, and it sent shockwaves through the empire. The Tibetans had proven they were more than just a nuisance. They were a legitimate rival. The Tams court was in a state of shock, but they weren't about to give up. After the Dafei River disaster, they regrouped. The Tams rebuilt their forces, focusing on a more defensive strategy, fortifying their western frontier. They knew another direct, large-scale invasion was too risky. They needed a different approach. Brings, Worcester 681 AD. The Tams decided to try a more targeted strike. His mission was to lead a force to disrupt Tibetan operations and re-establish a Tams presence. The stage was set for another major confrontation. The chosen battlefield was a place called Subia, or Supi, in some texts, located in what is now modern-day Qinghai. The Tibetan commander facing Heike Changzi was Teni Dampu. The Tibetans were confident. After their stunning victory at Defei River, they felt almost invincible on their home turf. They likely expected to repeat their successful strategy, use their mobility and knowledge of the high-altitude terrain to encircle and destroy the Temps force. They saw the approaching Temps army not as a threat, but as an opportunity to inflict another humiliating defeat. But General Heike Changji was no fool. He had studied the previous Tempsi failures and was determined not to repeat them. He knew he could unwin a conventional battle of maneuver against the swift Tibetan cavalry in the open plains. He needed to change the rules of the game. So, he devised a brilliant and audacious plan. As the Tibetan army advanced, Heike Changji didn't meet them head-on. Instead, he ordered his troops to set up a defensive camp. But this wasn't just any camp. He had his soldiers create what ancient Chinese texts describe as a square formation or a fortified laager. Think of it as a mobile fortress made of supply wagons chained together, with spearmen and archers protecting it from the inside. This tactic neutralized the Tibetans' greatest advantage, their cavalry's mobility. The Tibetan horsemen couldn't just charge through. They would be charging into a wall of wood and steel. The Tibetan commander Senidampu saw the strange Temps formation and likely scoffed. He launched wave after wave of cavalry charges, expecting to break the square. But the Temps soldiers held firm. From behind the protection of the wagons, Tempsi crossbowmen rained down a deadly volley of bolts on the charging Tibetan. The spearmen formed a dense hedge of sharp points that the horses couldn't penetrate. The battle raged, with the Tibetans throwing everything they had at the unyielding square. Then, at the perfect moment, when the Tibetan forces were exhausted and disorganized from their failed assaults, Heike Changji sprung his trap. He ordered his own elite cavalry, which he had held in reserve inside the formation, to charge out from gates in the wagon fort. This counterattack was devastating. The Tibetans, caught completely by surprise and already weary from battle, were routed. The hunter had become the hunter. The Temps forces pursued them relentlessly, inflicting heavy casualties. The Battle of Subia was a resounding victory for the Temsi dynasty. The immediate aftermath was significant. The Tibetan commander Senidampu was captured, a huge blow to Tibetan morale. The victory at Subia temporarily halted the Tibetan advance and gave the Temps dynasty a much-needed morale boost after years of setbacks. It proved that with the right tactics and leadership, the Tang army could indeed defeat the Tibetans, even in the challenging high-altitude environment. Sometimes, it's the lesser-known battles like Subia that reveal the most about the ingenuity, resilience, and ambition of the people who fought them. It marked a key moment where the Temps dynasty, pushed to the brink, innovated its way to a crucial victory, ensuring its survival and prestige on a contested frontier. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Battle of Subia. I hope you found it as fascinating as I do. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. And do you forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next historical adventure. Let me know in the comments what other obscure but important battles you'd like to see covered. See you next time.